And the politics, let's talk the politics. When the missionaries came, because then I'll come to what I would have thought would have been a contradiction. According to me, the more I want to study theology and the more I expose myself to how religions work, like I said, opium of the mind. So when they came, the missionaries, that is, maybe 1652 may not have been an exact mission of the missionaries, but when they came, you spoke about them establishing schools. URC, right? That is URC.
URCSA.
Yes. So it's part of that collective that came. I don't know systematically what were these things. So they came with school and they came with religion. And these were twin purposes. And I want to juxtapose it with what Helen Zille has said colonialism wasn't a bad thing. So you're a religious person, you're a Christian, you're a theologian. I want you to answer this question. Was colonialism a bad thing for South Africa? Because he says it wasn't such a bad thing.
Let me maybe answer it with a very difficult example that normally I wouldn't use, but it's more or less the same, because that's what happened to Africa. Africa was raped. So if it happens that someone rapes a woman and a child is born out of that rape, and that child happens to be the best of the best, the first child to have done heart surgery, do you see that the event, the act that led to that, do you still glorify it? Can't glorify it. The reality of the matter is that rape would have happened, people would have been hurt, rights of people would have been trampled on. That's the reality of what we are dealing with. So, yes, colonialism was that bad. And in fact, colonialism subjected Africans to different treatments which were very bad. Exploitation, abuse, exclusion, being treated as if we are animals. That's what was brought by colonialism to us as Africans. In fact, if you check the decisions taken by the colonialist, the Dutch Reformed Church that you are referring to was segmented into four. It was the Dutch Reformed Church, what we used to call the mother church, Moederkerk. It only hosted, and to date, if you can go anywhere now, any Dutch Reformed Church, you will find that as net for the blankets, only for whites. We then had, through a decision of 1856, we had four different churches that were established within the Dutch Reformed Church. You will get the Dutch Reformed Church for whites, Dutch Reformed Church for blacks, Dutch Reformed Church for Indians, Dutch Reformed Church for colors, called Dutch Reformed Mission Church, Dutch Reformed Church in Africa for blacks, Dutch Reformed Church, RCA for Reformed Christian Church for India. So you had those, but it was only after a decision was made that because of the weakness of some, we cannot sit at the table of Holy Communion together with blacks, Indians, coloreds. Whites must sit there, Indians. And what did that do? Later, then we had segregation. And segregation became a political policy only later, informed by the decisions that were taken by the church, inside the church, in a meeting of the church, by practice in the church, later translate into a political program of separate development.
So I want to stick on this colonialism. I think Joe Slovo called it the colonialism of a special type, because the rulers who were white after they left. No, they did not leave after the revolution. I'm even using a wrong word. It's not a revolution. After emancipation or freedom, I don't know what, but should I even call it independence? In 94, I don't know what to call it, Prof. When that happened, and Joslovo is the white guy who presented the sunset clauses, and he called this thing colonialism of a special type. Was Helen Zille wrong in framing what she said, that colonialism is not such a bad idea, or it wasn't necessarily wrong? Remember what happened with the DA as liberals. That's why she got into a tiff with Musi Maimane, and she had to retract, but she finally got rid of Maimane. So I want to put it to you, and unfortunately you are wearing a DA blue. You might as well at the end disclose your political affiliation. So was she wrong necessarily?
She was wrong, because there is no way that we can ever justify colonialism. Colonialism was bad in many respects, in many aspects, and it can't be justified by anyone. Of course, Helen Zille can say that because sometimes in South Africa we are not harsh to our perpetrators. We still treat them with kids' gloves. We still want to respect them even when they still try to remind us the bad things that they've done to us as black people. In all earnest, no white person should be having the guts to say that today in South Africa. But we've allowed that.
You have also said that because you said a child born out of this incorrect, I'm trying to run away from the R word, this incorrect mating, the child born out of it, if the child is good, let's hate the process, but let's embrace the child. So I think Helen Zille, in a way, she was just saying the things that came out of colonialism makes colonialism not such a bad thing. Because what you are saying with what Helen has said is exactly the same thing. And I can't say the tone, I can't say whatever, but what you are saying is exactly the same thing that you were saying. So we can't, the proverbial word of throwing the baby with the bathwater. So where are we? Should we? Because you are a living testament of those ideals of the missionaries when they came. They wanted to bring education and religion, and you have embraced it, and you have made a career out of it. You understand? So it's a distinction that I'm trying to draw. This dichotomy of having, someone once said, he's a pastor, by the way, was sitting there, he was saying, these people who say Pan-Africanism, they are Western thing that they embrace and they adopt very, very dearly, but when it favors them, they don't want Western things, but they say they want pro things. So it's a very difficult thing to draw distinction on. That's why I'm asking you. You think she was wrong? Do you say so because she did not say it correctly, or the tone or the demeanor in which she put it was not correct?
Everything in it is wrong.
Everything.
It could be tone, it could be content, even the thought itself, it's wrong. Shouldn't have happened. In fact, because you are asking another question on top of that, you will ask even in terms of religion, why are we still affiliated to a religion that oppresses black people? The Rousseau himself, when he writes, he says, "Man born free, but everywhere in chains." And that statement is very important.
Powerful.
In understanding that we are born into this thing, you diagnose the problem, but the way the system is built in a way that you will continuously fly. That's why the expression "aluta continua," because it's a recognition that what we are fighting, something that we might not overcome today, but it might take years for us to win. So that is the reality of the matter. And Senokoane answers the question of why, when he was asked, but why are you still a pastor in the church And he answered by saying, I'm simply bewitched. So we must accept that we are bewitched by systems, processes, structures that were created for many years. For us to reverse those things or to do away with them, it will take us many years. It doesn't mean it's a simple process. But it doesn't mean we shouldn't continue to struggle, to fight, and in ensuring that the next generation at least try to improve. In fact, you might even ask me a very naive question now to say, but why are you expressing yourself even in an English language?
Exactly.
And the question is right, it's a correct question, but we are chained into the system and we are fighting to release ourselves from the shackles of the system. And it's not an easy exercise.
So I want to leave the Helen Zille. Many, during conquest, I know I was hosting a Mupedi historian, and he was telling me how through a gentleman called Khalema, they were given Christianity when the missionaries came, and they were given land. You go and establish there, and umuso to agrandate Senokoane.
Yes.
When Moshweshwe, do you call it conversion in theology? When someone, I don't know if it's changing. Yeah, it changes to a religion.
Yes.
When he was converted to Christianity, do you see it as a betrayal of his people because he accepted Christianity before they did? Do you think it was a betrayal?
Was Moshe ever baptized?
I don't know, but he historically he's deemed to have been to have become a Christian before he died.
Yes, but we must ask when and how. That's why I'm asking you a simple question of saying, was he ever baptized?
I don't know.
You know, because Moshe refused to be baptized. That's the reality. The reality of the matter is that our leaders, they were aware of what was happening. That's why Dingan will, even himself, classify others as Batagati. It's not because they were naive. They knew what they were doing. They could identify those that were with them, one of their own. And they were wise enough to understand what the agenda of colonialism was about. And that's why they were resisting that ideology. So it's a simple matter that to say we have been exposed to this through our ancestors and they understood. So the reality of the matter is that, we will have to attempt from time to time to try to escape what was forced through our thoughts.
Is South Africa, because South Africa is regarded as a better place than the rest of Africa. White people use it as an example of their presence. The reason South Africa is great is because of their presence. And I'm suspecting that Helen Zille was leaning exactly on that when she was using this. Hence, I'm going back to colonialism of a special type. We did not, okay, let me say Africa, because, Africa is so huge. We in the, I don't want to say SADC, in the southern tip of South Africa, when we talk about Christianity, we talk about the one that came with many missionaries. In the east of our continent, in Ethiopia and stuff, when they speak about Christianity, they talk about the old Orthodox stuff, and they did not think of it as something that was brought. We think of it something that was brought to us, because you said Africa, Christianity started here. Are we at a better place in South Africa because we are sheltered by whites, or we adopted Christianity? Is there a link?
No, not really. It has nothing to do with whites. It has to do with decisions that we made and depending whether you're asking during colonialism or apartheid or today.
Today.
If it has today, it is the decisions that we made ourselves as black people. We are a majority. We made political decisions, and what that we thought, even economic decisions that we thought will suit us for our purpose, for our context. We cannot credit white people for the decisions that we've made. If white people had the opportunity to make decisions, we'll still be under apartheid or even under colonialism. Decisions that were made by black people, forced whites through the protests that we had, impact strategies that we used as black people. And we cannot underestimate the authority and the wisdom that we have, irrespective whether it was through guns or through political pressure or through economic sabotage. But those were the ideas that were, thought carefully by our forefathers to date. And the fruits of today are as a result of. In fact, many people want to argue that the economy of South Africa thrived or thrives because of whites, forgetting that the labor intensivity, the contributor of our labor, the biggest contributor is black people. Mechanics everywhere are black people. People who are building this high-rise building are black people. People building trains are black people. So people who work the farm, the land, are black people. So we cannot give credit to no one except black people. So yes, there will be another bigger question to say, but why did you allow yourself to be, oppressed by a minority? It's a genuine, valid question. But that does not take away the reality that black people are a bigger contributor to this, theoretically and practically.
Thanks. I want to qualify it in passing because maybe people might get it misconstrued. The reason I spoke about white people, specifically speaking about their presence here, you'd realize that we are not the most well-endowed country in the continent. We seem to have what other people have. Botswana has bigger diamonds. Congo has bigger everything that everyone has. It's just the presence of white people being here has shielded us from the harsh realities of the world in terms of various things. So I just wanted to qualify it's what I meant. So the biggest church, this is September, beginning of the African year. The biggest church, the ZCC, is having their conference. I don't even know if I'm using the correct way when I say conference. So I want to ask you this. We Africans love this religion more than those that gave us the religion do. And they use this religion differently than we do. And there are many examples, but like uniform and stuff, but I don't want to go there. I just want to ask, what is it about, more Africa, an African person, where does he benefit from becoming a Christian?
Look, let me first say that I'm not sure whether ZCC is the biggest. I don't know. Mm-hmm. It will depend on, I'm not a statistician, but it depends on what do you want to mean by that. But I, for one, will know that, for example, globally there are bigger churches. Maybe our reference will have to do with SADC or Africa.
Yes,
I don't
exactly,
know.
Yeah.
But even if it were to be the case, I will still argue otherwise. Because remember, the difference between ZCC and other churches will be that others are decentralized. For example, our Church United Reformed Church, the Methodist, Anglicans, and so on, mainline churches, we are decentralized. We worship at different corners, unless if we are forced to worship together at once. And it has not been the case for many years for the mainline churches. If we were to bring them in one space, it's another debate for another matter. So that one, it's an issue for another time. But the reality of the matter is that what ZCC has done successfully.
Can you just hold it there? Just want to pass with them. So I want you to qualify it. So what the Prof means is, and you'll correct me, because the ZCC, Ushembe, and Tate Modise have got their pilgrimages where they combine, they bring masses and they combine there, they work. We are able to see them as a mass, and that might misconstrue myself and other people to think they're bigger churches. Is that accurate?
You are correct.
Thank you very much.
Correct.
Okay.
So ZCC, what it has done successfully, and the Shembes, is that they managed to bring the black content into the Christian faith. And we must appreciate that for a simple reason. Black people were undermined. We were thought that we are a nation without direction, without tradition, without culture. In fact, the 1658 decision to start to teaching us Dutch and to offer us Christian instruction was also a way of taking away Africans from their culture. And as a result, for you to be Dutch, you have to be civilized, to speak that language civilized, even in your culture civilized, and to do away with your own traditions and culture, customs as an African. But ZCC and others did well in trying to fuse the two together.